Today we're talking about perimeter and circumference. This should be not too hard of a lesson as long as you're careful. So perimeter literally means para means around, meter means to measure. So perimeter literally means to measure around something. So it's just the distance around any figure. So if I have a triangle, if I want the perimeter, all I have to do is add up all of the sides. So let's say, for example, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 5. The perimeter of that triangle would be 5 plus 3 is 8 plus 2 is 10. And make sure you always have a label when you're doing these things, so make sure you're very careful to include the label. If there is no label, you can just write units. If I have a rectangle, parallel sides of a rectangle are going to be congruent to each other. So all I have to do, I know that this is going to be the same as this, and this is going to be the same as this. So I do 2L plus 2W is going to equal my perimeter. So let's say that this is 2 and this is 4. I'm going to do 2 times 2 plus 2 times 4. 4 plus 8 is 12 units. If I have a square, all the sides of the square are congruent. So all I have to do is 4 times one side. So if one side is 5, I do 4 times 5. So that will be 20 units. If I have a parallelogram, it's just like a rectangle. If I know one of the sides and one of the lengths, so this is 3 and this is 5, I just multiply times 2. Since this is also going to be 3 and also going to be 5. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 10 is 16 units. If I have a trapezoid, it's the same as a triangle. I just have to add up all the sides. If I have a regular polygon, remember, a regular polygon, all the sides are the same. So all I have to do is the number of sides times the length. So let's say I have a regular pentagon in one side. So I have a pentagon, and it tells me one side is 5 inches. Well, I know a pentagon, let's make this 7 inches. I know a pentagon has 5 sides. If one side is 7, then I just do 5 times 7 since each side is 7, and I get 35 inches is the perimeter. Now, what happens if they give you the perimeter and they want one of the sides? Well, I just use my formula. Let's say, for example, I want a rectangle, 2L plus 2W equals the perimeter. And let's say for that rectangle, they tell you that the perimeter is 30. And they tell you that one of the sides is 6 inches. And they want the other side. Well, I plug in 30 for my perimeter. I plug in 6 for my length, and then I want to solve for my width. So 2 times 6 is 12, plus 2W equals 30. I'm going to isolate my variable. I add or subtract first. So I'm going to subtract 12. 2W equals 18. Now I isolate, divide by 2, so I have 9 inches. That's my width. So if they give you the perimeter and they want a different part, let's say the same thing with the square. Let's say they tell you the perimeter of a square is 16 inches and they want one side. Well, then just divide by 4, so one side would be 4 inches. Let's say they give you a regular polygon. They say you have a hexagon, and the perimeter of the hexagon is 24 inches. Well, I know a hexagon has 6 sides, and I want to know what one side is when the perimeter is 24. So I just divide by 6, so one side would be 4 inches. So if they give you the perimeter and they want one of the other sides, just plug it into the formula. So that is how you solve problems when you're dealing with polygons. Now, how about if you have something that is not a polygon? So how about if you have a circle? Well, for a circle, first of all, we need to learn some terms. So a circle, first of all, is when you have one point, every point that is the same distance from that circle, from that middle point is the circle. So in a circle, you have a center point, and then everything on this curve is the same distance from that center point. If you have a segment that goes from one point on a circle to another point, we call that a chord. Now, not all chords are the same length. So, for example, this chord would be a different length from a chord from here to here, and from a chord from here to here. So not all chords are the same length. But there is a special type of chord called a diameter. A diameter is when the chord goes through the center. If the chord goes through the center, it is a diameter. So every diameter is a chord. Every diameter is a type of chord. So then every diameter would be the same length. So if the chord goes through the center, it's a diameter. This is a diameter. And half of the diameter is the radius. So the radius times 2 is the diameter, and the diameter divided by 2 is the radius. All radii will be equal. Doesn't matter, as long as they start at the center and go to any side, they're all going to be equal. And 2 times any radius will equal the diameter. The 2 times the radius will always equal the diameter. Now, when I want to find the distance around the circle, we call that the circumference. So the circumference is the distance around a circle. And I find the circumference a long time ago. We don't have time to get into how they did this. But a long time ago, they figured out that if I take the diameter, if I were to take a string of the diameter and to put it around the circle, a little bit more than 3 of those 3 diameters, a little more than 3, would equal the circumference. So if I do the circumference divided by the diameter, I get that number, and we call that number pi, or the approximation. Pi actually goes on forever, so we round it to 3.14. So if I rearrange that, I know that the circumference of a circle is simply pi times the diameter. And since I know the diameter is 2 times the radius, I can also say the circumference of the circle is pi times 2 times the radius. So if I want to find the circumference of a circle, let's say I have a circle, and it tells me that the radius is 2, and I want the circumference. Well, then I use this formula. The radius is 2, so I do 2 times 2, and then remember pi is 3.14, so I do 2 times 2 times 3.14, and that gives me the circumference. What about if it tells me that I have a circle and the diameter is 10? Well, that's even easier. I just do 10, the diameter, times 3.14. And that will give me my circumference. Now, notice in your book for numbers 5 through 10, for 5 through 7, you have to round to the nearest hundredth. And for 8 through 10, you have to round to the nearest tenth. For 8 through 10, it gives you the circumference, and it wants both the radius and the diameter. So, if it gives you the circumference and it wants the diameter, all you have to do is do the circumference divided by 3.14. That will give you your diameter. Once you have your diameter, if you want your radius, just divide by 2. So circumference divided by 3.14 pi will give you your diameter. And then, so for 8, 9, and 10, the first thing you need to do is do circumference divided by 3.4 to get your diameter, round to the 10th, then divide that by 2 to get your radius. Again, make sure they're both rounded to the 10th. And really, that is the whole lesson. Just one more thing, for numbers 19 and 20, they look a little complicated, but they're really not. First of all, you're looking for the perimeter, so you know you're looking for this, plus this, plus this, plus this. Since these and this and this are across from each other, you can see they are congruent, so this is also going to be 40. Notice that this is 15 and this is 15, so really if I put those two together, I just get one circle with the radius is 15. So all I have to do is 2 times the radius times pi. That will give me this, and then add that to those. That will give me the whole perimeter. Hopefully you do well in this lesson.